Hey, what's going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and in this video here, this is going to be something a little bit different. This is going to be showing you all how you can install HEN offline. So this is going to be for PS3HEN version 4.86. On HEN, the current version here I'm using is 3.0.1, I believe. And there's a few reasons for this. Now, first of all, this still requires access to your local area network. By that I mean we're going to be doing some stuff on our PC. We're going to be hosting this on a computer, or if you want to use this and host it on an Android device, that is completely up to you. However, you need to make sure that the device you're going to host a small web server on is going to be on the same local network as your PlayStation 3. However, your PlayStation 3 does not need full internet access because we're not going to be going to the PS3exploit.com website on our PS3. That's why if anybody asks, well, I still have to use the internet browser, how is this offline? It's still offline, you just don't need internet access, full internet access on your PS3. For anybody wondering why they might want to do this, well, if you install PS3HEN, or at least you try to, you might be completely successful with it. I have a video showing how to install PS3HEN on firmware 4.86, and at least for me, even when I just tested this, it still seems to work just fine. But a lot of people have run into issues in regards to either not being able to install properly from the regular installer, or even as drastic as running the alternative installer and all of the icons in the network column here end up disappearing. So this is an alternative way of doing this. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a main way of installing HEN, just because even though it might be a little more hacky and a little more fun, it is going to be more difficult than the regular ways of installing HEN, at least for a end user who is just trying to get into this and run some homebrew and play some backup games. However, if you have tried to install HEN, PS3HEN multiple times and you have not been successful due to stopgaps such as that, you might need to look into a self-hosting option, and that's what we're going to do here. So for this process, we're going to need a few things. Of course, we're going to need our PlayStation 3. We need to make sure it is hooked up to the same network as a computer we want to host our web server on. I'm going to be showing you this with XAMPP. However, the demonstration, at least the post I'm going to reference, has some instructions for using KWS on an Android device. Now, I know not everyone has an Android device, so I'm going to be showing you on XAMPP, which does work on Windows, Mac OS, as well as Linux, so you have a few options right there, and you can have as much fun with the web server as you want to. But you're going to need to have access to a device which will host your web server. We might as well have full access to a computer so we can download and transfer over the files we need, as well as a USB drive. And since we're going to be booting into recovery mode, at least I recommend that for installing HFW on here, I would recommend having a legitimate DualShock 3 controller and a mini USB cable on hand. So now that we have all those preliminary steps out of the way, let's actually get to the downloads. So for this, move over to your PC or whatever computer you're going to use, and let's get started. Alright, so first of all, a big thank you to a couple people here. First of all, Koro over at PSX Place for writing this awesome guide that I'm going to be referencing here, as well as IMN7 for releasing the Auto HEN Installer, which is what we're going to be using for this. So there are some notes that we're going to have here. Of course, we do need to be on HFW, and it says we only need to install HFW one time. I still, because PS3HEN is normally recommended for this, I still recommend installing HFW twice. However, if you got to this point and you got stuck, you've probably already installed HFW, so we'll just install it one more time on here. The other thing on here is that when we use this method, the ps3hen.bin file is going to be on our hard drive as opposed to the flash. There's going to be an optional section here near the end, which you do not have to do, but for anybody who has any intention of running HEN Toolbox, you are going to have to follow this last step. It's easy enough though, it's just installing one package file on your system once it's modified, so there's no real harm in doing it, but keep in mind if you don't do this final step, you won't be able to use HEN Toolbox properly. So let's go ahead and grab a few things. First of all, we are going to need the zip file, which is referenced here at the end for the Auto HEN Installer. Just download it somewhere you can easily find it, and download the 4.86 HFW. For this, we're also going to be, of course, using XAMPP. Now, if you want to use something else for this, such as IIS or maybe MiniWeb, I didn't have luck with MiniWeb personally, or if you even want to use Koro's advice here and utilize KWS, I actually used this for some PS3s back in the 4.82 days. That can work fine, that's on Android. But if you have OS X, Linux, or Windows, I'm going to be using XAMPP for this. Granted, I am on Windows, so if you're on another operating system, you can just adjust for that easily enough. We can just click on download here or here, and I would recommend just downloading the latest version available. I would also recommend doing some MD5 checks on the files we've downloaded, so if you're on another operating system, you will need to use some kind of equivalent MD5 hash checker, but for Windows, we can go ahead and use WinMD5. So for this, you can just click and download WinMD5. Alright, so let's get the hard part out of the way now that we have everything downloaded here. Let's get our web server set up. So for this, we can just find our executable, or whatever we're going to use, and install XAMPP. There are some warnings here in regards to user account control. You might need to disable user account control if you're having some issues on this. Either way, I know mine will work fine on here, so I'm not going to disable that. But I'm just going to click on next. If you want to install all this other stuff, you can, but we just need a pretty basic version, so I just need Apache on here. I don't need Perl, I don't need any of the other stuff here for the most part. So really just having it as basic as possible, this should work just fine. We can install it to the C drive in the XAMPP directory, that will work. English, not going to do that. And let's go ahead and install it. Alright, and once this is all done, we do want to start the control panel, so you can click on Finish. And we're going to have a screen that looks like this here for our XAMPP control panel. Now let's go ahead and test this. It's really simple. You go to Apache and you click on Start. It's now going to show that it's up and running. It should be green and we should have 2 ports available. We're going to want to use port 80 for this, which is just the default HTTP port. It's also worth noting you might get a firewall warning or heads up right here, and you just want to make sure you allow access. In order to make sure this works, you can open up a web browser and go to http://127.0.0.1:80 just to be specific. Or you can type in localhost here, whatever you want to. Either way, once you type in one of those, you want to hit the enter key. And if we get a screen like this, congratulations, this is a website that is currently running on your computer right now. This is all being locally hosted, and we know that XAMPP is working properly. The last heads up I want to make here in regards to the web server is for VPN users. If you are currently using a VPN on your device, like your computer, I'd recommend disabling that VPN for the time being. Just disconnect from it for a few minutes while we're doing all this stuff on the PS3, because it might interfere with our control panel. So now with all this done, let's go ahead and stop this for the time being, because we're going to put in the Auto HEN Installer. Now you need to find where you installed XAMPP, and remember I put mine in the C drive and the XAMPP directory, and when you're inside of here you need to find a directory called htdocs. And if you want to, you can back up all of this data in here. That's just the website we went to. I personally don't care about it, so I'm going to delete out all of these files in htdocs. Let's go ahead and verify the MD5 hash for our Auto HEN installer. So if you want to, you can right click and extract your WinMD5 to a directory and open up the WinMD5 exe. Once this opens up, grab the Auto HEN installer and drop it in right here, and we need to compare it to a checksum. Go back to the original post for the Auto HEN installer, and you want to find the MD5 for the zip file we're referencing. You can copy this out, and within WinMD5, paste it in here, click verify, and if it matched, we're good to go, and we can continue on with the web server setup. So what we can do is right click and extract out the Auto HEN installer into its own directory, or just grab the files as is. There should be 3 files right here. You want to copy all 3 of these files and paste them into your htdocs directory. So it should look like this: C, XAMPP, htdocs, and then you should have a .htaccess, hen.p3t, and index.html. Those should be the 3 files you have right here. So your web server should be set up and all ready to go. The last thing we'll need is our IP address. So this is going to be our local IP address on our local network for our computer. So if you're using Windows, you'll want to use a command prompt, and just in case, you can right click, run this as admin. You might have to say yes to that, and you want to just type in here one word, all lowercase, ipconfig, and hit the enter key. Now, depending on how many adapters you have set up, you might have to scroll up and down and find which one it is, but my adapter I know for sure is the Ethernet adapter to Ethernet, and my local IPv4 address, this is the one you need, is right here. So you need to grab your IPv4 address, and you'll just need to note it down somewhere or memorize it or what have you, but this is your local IP for your computer. So now that we have our IP address and we have the Auto HEN installer already copied to the htdocs directory, we can start up our Apache server on XAMPP yet again, and we can now just minimize XAMPP. Now we want to open up our web browser again, and this time to make sure we can verify the IP address and everything and make sure this works, we want to go to http://192.16 or whatever your IP is. I know this is mine, for example, and you don't have to do the 80 at the end, but if you want to do :80, that's fine. Hit the enter key, and you should get a web page like this with the Auto HEN installer. And if this comes up, congratulations, your web server is working as expected. You do not want to close out of XAMPP. You don't want to stop this. We just want to keep this running. And you can keep this on another screen or keep it on here or just minimize it, but we want to keep it running this whole time. We're going to be installing PS3HEN. All right, so now we have the web server up and running in the background. Let's go ahead and get our HFW installed yet again, as well as the latest HEN installer signed package. I know this one's optional, but it's easy enough to do this here. So for our HFW, we can just right click, and if you're using an extraction software, extract it into its own folder, and we should have our PS3 file, as well as a folder with a whole slew of numbers and letters. That is the MD5 hash. Now, just like before with anything else PS3 related, we need to grab a USB drive and make sure it has been formatted to FAT32 file system. If it is not FAT32, we are going to need to back up any data we care about off this USB drive and then format it accordingly. So that can be as easy enough as right click format. FAT32 is okay, quick format is fine here. Hit OK, and we now have formatted this to FAT32. If your USB drive is too large, we can use another option for this, and I'll show you an option that I use, at least on Windows. I like to use FAT32 format, otherwise known as GUI format. You can come to the website here and click on this image to download the exe. Now make sure you have your drive letter noted, mine is H, and close out of any File Explorer windows here. Now you'll need to right click, run GUI format as admin, say yes to the user account control prompt, and right here, grab your drive letter, make sure you do quick format, start, OK, and that is a second way of formatting your USB drive to FAT32. So now again, let's get our USB drive set up here. We can go to the USB drive, and for the latest HEN installer signed package, we simply copy and paste it over just like that in the root of the drive. Next, let's copy over the PS3 update file. So we can right click right here and create a new folder, call it PS3, all uppercase one word. Inside of the PS3 folder, we need to create a new folder, call it update, all uppercase one word. And inside of the update folder, we need to copy out our HFW file and paste it in right there. Once this has copied over, we can go ahead, open up WinMD5 yet again. We can just keep this running here. And over where our HFW file was extracted, you want to get the name of this folder, which is the MD5 hash, and copy out the name itself. Now on your USB drive, wherever you copied this PS3 updat file to, you need to grab the file and drop it onto WinMD5. And as it's verifying, we can paste in the desired MD5 hash right there, click on verify, and if they both match, we're good to go. So if they're matching, we can exit out, and we now need to rename our update file to simply ps3updat.pup. And just to verify this looks good, If you're on Windows, you can click on View and enable file name extensions. So just as a final step here and a final check, this is exactly how our PS3's USB drive should be. It should be FAT32 formatted. You should have a package file right here in the root, and then here, your PS3 folder, your update folder, and ps3updat.pup, that being the HFW file. So now that all that's done, we can right-click, eject our USB drive, and then remove it and take it to our PS3. Alright, so back over at the PS3, make sure you have a USB drive plugged in, make sure it is detected, as you can see right here it is. And at this point, we're going to reinstall HFW. You probably already have it installed at least once, but this is more going to be for anybody who might have messed up, or for example, if you have a blank network tab right here. So for this, we can make sure our USB drive is plugged in, go to System Update, Update via Storage Media, and you can update from here if you're able to. If you're not able to, such as myself, you will need to boot into recovery mode. To remind you how to do this, you'll need to turn off your system completely, and from here, you need to hold down the power button on your system and turn it on and keep it held down until it turns back off. After that, you'll need to do the same thing. Hold down the power button, make sure the system turns on, and only release the power button once it beeps twice at you. Once you boot into recovery mode, you should have a screen like this, so of course hook up your controller, press the PlayStation button, go all the way down to System Update, and we're now going to check for a system update by holding down the Start and Select buttons at the same time, and give it a few moments. Once it detects the update on your USB drive, it's going to say preparing to update, just let it do its thing. Now once your system restarts, it should say that we have HFW hybrid and exploitable. We can of course press the PlayStation button. From here we can just go ahead, accept, and press OK, or the X button, and let it install. This will take a few minutes and our system will reboot at the end. Alright, so now at this point our system is at a place where we want it. We have our HFW completely reinstalled, but we still don't have HEN on here. As you can see, I have Homebrew and some HEN games, but I do not have PS3HEN on here since I can't enable it. There's going to be a few things I recommend we do first. First of all, we can go over to Settings, System Settings, go down to Display What's New, and let's turn that off. The next thing we can do is go into our internet browser, and there's going to be a few settings here that we need to tweak. Once this opens up, press the triangle button, go to Tools, and for your home page, I recommend use a blank page and press OK. Go up to Tools again, confirm browser close, you want to disable this, and now the next things we should do is go to Tools, delete cookies, we're going to delete search history, we're going to delete cache, and the last thing is delete authentication information, because why not? And now if we press the circle button, our browser just closes out like that. As a heads up, even though this is a different method of installing PS3HEN, the warnings are still going to apply here and be in full effect. Do not enable factory service mode with PS3HEN, and do not install CC API with PS3HEN. Even though we're going about this a different method, this is still the same product, this is still the same application, this is still the same exploit. So there you go, you have been warned. So now let's actually go back into the browser, and we're going to commence installing PS3HEN. So this is the point where you need to remember what your IP address is on your computer that is currently hosting your web server. You'll need to press the Start button, delete all of this, and I'm going to put in my IP address. So it's actually here from before, but you put in your IP address, you can put the :80 if you want to, or whatever port you're going to be using for your application. And once you have that all set up, press the Start button. And if it all worked successfully, it should automatically start downloading this hen.p3t file. And again, this is being hosted on your computer right now. So just let this download. Now when it says download completed, press the circle button and let it install. Now that does require a system reboot, so if your system cuts out to black and restarts, then that is expected, but at this point here, we can go ahead and enable HEN, just to make sure it's all working. And there we go, it's all up and running. So I did keep that in because I notice it does take a bit to initialize HEN the first time around, so if it takes a while, then don't be alarmed by that. But the next thing we can do is install the PS3HEN.bin file, or the file that we need, to our flash. So at this point, make sure your USB drive is still plugged in. Now go over to your package manager after you enable HEN, install package files, standard, and press X on the latest HEN installer signed, and wait a few moments. So once the install is complete, we can go back and now turn off your system and turn it back on. Alright, so again we were able to boot up our system. Now we can fire up HEN, and I'll show you it should be faster at this point. So as you can see, we've already been able to enable it. We still have the package manager of course, but our Webman Games shows up. And we are all good to go, so any of our old homebrew and re-signed games should work just fine. So at this point, awesome, HEN has been enabled. It did take a little bit of a different route on here, but we were able to install PS3HEN, thankfully pretty easily, with the Auto HEN Installer. As a heads up, now that we're done with the web server, you can stop this and you can quit out of XAMPP. So there we go, that is about it. I know it was a little bit of a roundabout way, but I hope you were able to get unstuck in your previous PS3HEN endeavors, or at least learn a new way to get this installed on here. I know that it can be a little bit hit or miss, and it seems like even with the regular tutorial, a lot of people report success and a lot of people also report failures on there. It just kind of seems to be hit or miss. Again, I wasn't able to replicate the issues of, the network column disappearing and such, but this method has proven to work pretty well. You just have to do a little bit more work to get this up and running and host your own web server. But once you get that all up and running, it's pretty simple. Anyways, that is about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.